In my final lecture for the week, I present two masterworks of Golden Age comics as an argument for my thesis that comics are the virulent art. In doing so, I tie my argument to my third Cuskin rule. Writing creates a persona. I mean this in that comics, all comics I would hazard, are about the creation of persona in one way or another. Whether they are comics in which a creator submits his or her memoir to the page, illustrating his or her identity before us, or whether they are superhero comics in which an individual dons a costume and goes out into the world to commit acts of heroism or villainy. Comics are always about the creation of a public self. We create ourselves through art, and in writing no less. And so, as you work on your essays for this class, I hope to remind you that you are not writing this essay. Instead, your persona is. And by saying that, I mean to call attention to the fact that there is a difference between your public self and your private self. Indeed, ultimately, your private self is generating a public self that will go forward and speak with a voice of confidence and wit and insight that is separate from your private, intimate self, which may speak in many different tones. Who better to lead us in this inquiry of the difference between the public and the private self than Captain America? Captain America was created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon in 1941, and he is the first superhero to have his own comic with his own title. And here it is, Captain America #1. 45 thrilling pages of Captain America, Sentinel of Our Shores, plus other great features. Smashing through, Captain America came face to face with Hitler. Also, Captain America's young ally, Bucky. Written before the attack on Pearl Harbor, Captain America is clearly a politically motivated piece. Indeed, it's not so much to say that it's propaganda. I define here propaganda as the systematic dissemination of information, especially in a biased or misleading way, in order to promote a political cause or point of view. So my thesis for this lecture is that art and propaganda are both technologies of the imagination. Indeed, they are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Great art might in fact be propagandistic, though not all propaganda rises to art. And so I suggest to you that both of these are statements, technologies really, of the imagination for forging a public statement. Let's follow Captain America a little bit by opening it to its first page. Here, in USA, 1941, as the ruthless warmongers of Europe focus their eyes on a peace-loving America, the youth of our country heed the call to arm for defense. But great as the danger of foreign attack is the threat of invasion from within. The dreaded fifth column. It was easy joining the army with forged papers. Now to carry out the Führer's plans. Ja, everything is in readiness. And so, once we enter into Captain America, we see it is indeed involved in a political cause, defending so-called peace-loving America, inspiring the youth of our country. But it's also involved in something else. It's worried about the threat of invasion from within. If Captain America is concerned with outward appearances, the public self, it is also concerned with the inward, with what's going on inside, with the private, internal self as well. Indeed, it uses this phrase, the fifth column. The fifth column in 1936 is used as a term, the body of one's supporters in an attacked or occupied foreign country, or, in this case, the enemy's supporters in one's own country. And so Captain America is concerned with outward and inward appearances, with how we project ourselves into the world, and who we are inside. In this, I would say that Captain America is a fiction that is about the threats of invasion from without entering inside. It is about viruses in this way. And I would say that it gives us a model for understanding how comics get inside us. Let us read on in Captain America. No sooner do we turn the page than we see the munitions plant is blown up. The resulting wave of sabotage and treason paralyzes the vital defense industries. While in Washington... But I tell you, Mr. President, there's no stopping these vermin. They're so firmly entrenched in our ranks that I hesitate to give a confidential report to even my most trusted aides. An army spotted with spies. It's useless. What would you suggest, gentlemen? A character out of comic books? Perhaps the Human Torch? In the army would solve our problem. But seriously, gentlemen, something is being done. I neglected to tell you because, well, I wasn't sure. But now, please send in Mr. Grover. And so, FDR himself cites comic books, another timely hero. Timely was the company that published Captain America, and they also had another superhero, the Human Torch, an android who was capable of flying as a ball of flame. And so, FDR enters us into a world of mystery. He calls in Mr. Grover, who leads us in the following pages through a shabby tenement, into a curio shop where an old wizened woman leads us through secret passages. Eventually, we enter into a secret laboratory. The astonished men enter to find a surprisingly modern laboratory. The army officials gasp in startled amazement as the wrinkled old shopkeeper sheds her wizened features to become an astoundingly beautiful young woman. The young lady behind the rubber mask is X-13, one of our most trusted agents. Grover and his pretty agent silently motion the army men to seats in a small observation room as the scientists reveal the fruits of their experiment. A side door opens, and a frail young man steps into the laboratory. "Don't be afraid, son. You're about to become one of America's saviors." Calmly, the young man allows himself to be inoculated with the strange, seething liquid. "There, it is done. Now watch the reaction." Captain America is a story of deceptive appearances. It begins with the question of the fifth column, of something inside us that we don't fully control. It moves with the criticism that vermin are entrenched in our ranks, and the other officer's observation that we are spotted with spies. FDR offers a character of a comic book, and so he leads us into a comic book reality in which there's secret passageways. A button in a shabby tenement opens up that the shop is merely a blind, and we enter into a subterranean laboratory, and there the page leads us through its curving mechanicals and sweeping panels. It leads us into a world of deception in which the old crone pulls away her mask to reveal her true beauty. But even there, she has no real name. X-19 is some kind of alter ego. So even the revelation of truth only opens up on another layer of deception. Identity is always changing, and we must follow along. And so the weak Steve Rogers emerges into the view. A view, I would add, mediated by some glass in which men can watch themselves hidden with a public appearance. They watch young Steve Rogers with his weak body empty and open to them. And so a syringe is injected into him, changing him into one of America's saviors. It is, in fact, a poem of indoctrination that leads to a moment of inoculation. And amazingly, as those curves lead us, they lead us into Steve Rogers' own point of view so that we become inoculated. The needle is injected directly into us. As a result, we are transformed into Captain America. Captain America is an alter ego injected into us as an infection over the host. I would say that this is metafiction. It is fiction talking about itself. It's talking about the way an imaginative technology can get into us, get into our own imagination, making us, perhaps, into something more. I'd like to turn now to a comic published 6 years later, Murder, Morphine, and Me, written and drawn by Jack Cole for True Crime #2 in 1947. This is an amazing comic, and it opens with a dramatic splash title page. Editor's note: this is a must. Once in a great while, a story comes along that is so powerful, so dynamic, it must be heard. Such a story is Mary Kennedy's own true account of her career in Scumland's vilest enterprise, the Dope Racket. By all means, read it. The True Confession of a Dope Smuggler by Mary Kennedy. You can call me a tramp, a bum, but I'm getting this off my chest, and you're gonna listen, see? I'm gonna tell you the whole ugly truth about the Isle of the Dead, the derelicts of drugs, the murderers at wholesale, and me in the middle. Who was the big boss of it all? You'll never guess, brother. Not in a million years. There we see this page where Mary's head floats, surrounded at the top by the text which assures us that this is a true story. And then, arcing around it, we see the action of the comic in synopsis. The brutal burning of bodies, the shooting, and the big boss's head obscured by Mary's word balloon, underwritten by it all as a promise. In order to protect the identity of innocent persons involved in the true stories of this true magazine, the names of some characters are fictitious. This, too, is a story of propaganda. Its claims to truth underscore the fact that it's fiction. It insists over and over that it's true, that it is a report of the drug war, but it is ultimately a fiction. And as soon as we turn the page, we're enmeshed in fiction. We're greeted with a picture of Mary finishing her cigarette, hanging over the panel, lackadaisically telling us, "Why am I telling you all this? I don't know. Ever glim the face of a drug addict? It does something to you. The horrible gaunt mask of yellow, eyes sunk deep in skull holes, sucking in the skin into wrinkled whirlpools of agony. You just don't forget pictures like that. Take that even in L.A., for instance. Mary, you gotta help me. Won't last the night if I don't get more. Mary, wake up! Go away. Let me die. See you in the morning. Please, Mary. I ran short today. Been calling your number every hour, but no answer. Tony, that liar, said you'd left town. Why the brush? You can't drop me now. You gotta trust me. Oh, you. Tony must be slipping, letting the sick hoppy jump him for my address and latchkey. Like I said before, no cash, no dope. Give me a break. Oh, you know I can't work with this pain tearing my insides out. I'll pay back every cent. Only I gotta have the morphine. We tried your way before, hophead. One needleful of joy juice, and you get so satisfied with the world you forget your obligations. No, we'll do it my way for a change. You slimy lech. I've lost my home, my wife, job, everything. Traded him in for a lousy shot in the arm. A little relief from agony that screams for more and more. And now, after you bled me dry, you tell me, Okay, there's a package behind the dresser. Help yourself. I'll square with the big boss somehow. Yes, Mary Kennedy, you'll try to square things with the big boss. Put the needle down. No! Olson, what was that? It sounds like Jane. Burglars, maybe. Yiggers, my gun. Bane left it downstairs. Stop shaking. Get up. She's having nightmares, maybe. You all right, Jane? No. Like I said, she's dreaming things again. Oh, dear. Thud. Wait till Tony comes. He'll fix. Don't do it. Oh! There's only one True Crime Comics, and this is it. The page is difficult and complex, dense with text and image and color. It opens with Mary's recollection, seemingly continuing the splash page, and then we're dumped into a narrative that's thick and full, that's filled with passion and sexuality. In that narrative, it seems that things just run along until suddenly, in the third tier, we're slapped in the face just as Mary is about to get horribly and brutally tortured, the hypodermic needle punched right into her eye, and then the drama is so tense that the panel seems to jump out of the tier, shaking with its own energy, and suddenly we're removed again, a second time. Now we're in Olsen's bedroom. They seem to be the landlady and landlord of the apartment tenement, and they rush up, and in that final tier we realize that Mary is simply in a dream, that there are layers of story here. There's the storytelling, there's the action of the dream which we participate in believing in, and then there's the revelation of the reality of the moment in which Olsen and his wife save a Jane from the dream. Not Mary, but a Jane. And so, this reminds us of Captain America. While this is a crime story, Captain America is a different genre, a superhero story, but both are involved in similar themes. Both are stories of betrayal, of suspicion, of enemies within, of shifting realities, of doors opening onto new realities. In Captain America, that's to the underground laboratory. Here, it is to the reality that Mary's interior space is not her room, but her dream. It is also, both are stories of deceptive appearances in which Steve Rogers is transformed into an American savior, and which Mary Kennedy masquerades as Jane as she pursues the American dream of wealth and happiness, of carefree luxury. Both, too, Captain America and Murder, Morphine, and Me, are stories of escape from the self. Steve Rogers is transformed from his 98-pound weakling into an American savior. And Mary tells us a little later in the story, here was my chance to break away. It is also their stories of the body as a weapon. Captain America literally becomes the ultimate infantryman. And Mary, well, her boyfriend, Tony, describes her as, "You're lethal, perfect for the part." In fact, I believe Murder and Morphine and Me takes us a step further from that hypodermic needle in Captain America. In Captain America, the hypodermic needle is injected into us, and we are inducted into a world of comics, of flying androids, and of super strong men. Our imagination is infused with the imagination of the comic book. Here, we're already in it. Here, we're already participating in a dream world that we can't separate from reality. Indeed, in that shaking, quivering panel, we are holding the hypodermic needle, and we are injecting it into Mary's eye. It is our point of view. We are, in fact, now the culprit. We are the mad scientist. We are the vehicle of the imagination, infusing the technology of comics elsewhere. Art and propaganda are technologies of fiction. They are ways of making the imagination seem real, and comics do them with an incredible power. Comics are that seething serum, that hop, that morphine that inspire an addictive notion of self-transformation. And so I argue that comics are virulent art. And in this, I suggest that the promise of comics are not simply escapism. These stories, from superheroes to crime genres, are labeled flights of the imagination, simple entertainments, but I think it runs much deeper than that. Witness here the inside cover of Action Comics 1. Here, the page asks you, turn to the feature Chuck Dawson, and you'll notice that it's printed in black and white. Now take out your crayons and color the first page of Chuck Dawson. Then, when you've colored it the best you possibly can, tear out the page and put it in an envelope and send it into this magazine. Cash award of $1 each will be paid to the best 25 submitted. Comics invite the reader. They invite the reader to participate. Indeed, look at the last page of the Captain America story. What in... Hello, Steve. Came down to what? Why, you're Captain America. You little rascal. I'd ought to tan your hide. I guess you got me dead to rights. I am Captain America. Gosh, gee whiz, golly. I never thought. From now on, we must both share the secret together. That means you're my partner, Bucky. And so Bucky's dreams fulfilled as he fights side by side with Captain America against the vicious elements who seek to overthrow the U.S. government. Here is how you can become a member of Captain America's Sentinels of Liberty. Send 10 cents to Timely Publications, and you'll become a member of the Sentinels of Liberty. Rather than just escapism, there's a promise here that you can participate, the reader can participate, in a technology of transformation. The physical format of the book, the ability to hold the book in your hand, allows you to participate in this technology. But more than that, the rhetorical format, the discussion of self in a process of transformation, allows you, the reader, to pick it up and to imagine yourself also in a process of transformation. Overall, comics are virulent because they provide processes of incorporation into an imaginative world that is bigger than you, bigger than the reader, but which the reader can actively participate in. And so the Golden Age used this formula to grow tremendously, each year building its millions of sales. From 1938, a combined sales of 2.5 million a month, through to 1943, where the sales are 18 million a month. And as superhero comics fell off after the war, other genres picked up, such as crime. Comics are virulent art. In concluding my lecture, then, I'd like to formulate my thinking in the form of an introduction, by way of suggesting how you can marshal your thoughts and collect them into a kind of introduction for your own essay. I would give my title Inoculated Identity. I think that sums up, in a way, both the theme of identity that I've touched upon since the beginning of this lecture, but also the strength of inoculation, the sense that comics are in some way associated with that hypodermic needle. My topic would be Jack Kirby and Joe Simon's Captain America, as well as Jack Cole's Murder, Morphine, and Me, show us comics' imagination of the self as a literary technology. Comics' imagination of the self. So, that sums up, it gives the authors, and it also shows where I'm going. The imagination of the self as a literary technology. And my argument is that comics' particular relationship to marketing insists that they sell their imagination, hence their addictive nature. They do not deny their relationship to marketing. Captain America shows us in a story of perfection. It gives us the syringe as a kind of metaphor or image of its own reflection on comics, and that's picked up in Murder, Morphine, and Me, and that drives us to the view that art and propaganda are technologies of the imagination. And so I would conclude with my thesis, comics are virulent